Today's episode is brought to you by Patreon. If you're interested in supporting the show, go to patreon.com/JoshuaVelas and become a $2 backer today and get early access to the new episodes. I'll be leaving a link in the description down below, but for now, on to today's episode. You're listening to the Augmented Experience podcast. I'm your host, as usual, Joshua Velas. I'm a student, musician, and a gamer at heart. Join me as I sit down every week to talk about all the latest news in the technology, business, and video game world. I hope you guys enjoy. All right, everybody, welcome back to the show. My name is Joshua Velas. I'm your host, as usual, and obviously, welcome back to the show. Today's episode 106 of the show, and before we get started, we're going to do a little house cleaning because, well, we just always do the house cleaning, so we're not even going to argue about doing it. Like, we always do it, so we're going to do it. So, obviously, today, I want to thank you guys for coming back and listening to the show. It really means a lot to me that you guys keep coming back and, downloading the episodes, sharing the episodes, liking the episodes, whether it be on YouTube, granted, Spotify and Apple Podcasts, no reviews yet, but fingers crossed. I'd greatly appreciate if you guys do reviews, but hey, that's on you guys. I would like it, but that'd be cool. So then we can, get the show a little bit bumping a little bit more. But obviously, thank you guys for all the downloads. It really, really means a lot to me, and I really appreciate it. In terms of other things, as you guys can see, my hand's a little bit more back to normal now. I'm still dealing with some side effects. Like this Sunday, I was dealing with some of it, not so much in the area that I normally had it, but now it seems like I'm a little bit more normal. So obviously I'm not saying I'm not dealing with it, but now I have to be a little bit more cautious and more mindful of what I'm doing because, I don't want this to become something more serious. So thank you guys for keeping me in thoughts and prayers. It really means a lot to me. But aside from that, there's not really much else in terms of house cleaning that we need to do, which that means we really just go into the episode then. So today, as I mentioned, is 106, is 106 episodes of doing this. But we're also going to be talking about Sony, which we have a double header this week because as I posted on my social medias, or actually, no, I didn't post it. So I actually get to tell you guys myself. Actually, no, I retweeted it, but I didn't put it on my list, but that's aside from the point. Whole tangent that we're just going on right now. So yes, the PlayStation event will be continuing on June 11th. So they decided to reschedule it because given the whole situation with Black Lives Matter, that they decided that it wasn't appropriate to do it last week. So they are doing it again this week on Thursday. So on June 11th, they will be doing the PlayStation 5 reveal event. I'm going to be giving my thoughts about that. So instead of the Pokemon news this week, I'm going to be doing the Sony reveal event. Obviously, at the time of that event is normally when I record. So I'm going to watch the event and then record the episode so that you guys can get my thoughts for Friday. So you guys know how I feel about it because I wanted to wait and hold back on it. But Sony has been in the news again, not for the right reasons this time. I posted about this on my social medias last week and I had time to think about it. It's been on my mind and this is something that I wanted to talk about, which is regarding the Sony refund lawsuit that happened last week. So if you guys don't know, I'm going to be, using my phone to read the article to you guys to explain what actually happened because it's actually very important. And this actually has some good repercussions that the industry needs to catch up with. Granted, you'll understand why I say that. So as we go into the article, this is an article posted 4 days ago by CNET. And I originally was trying to find the original article that I had because it was a little bit more detailed, but I don't really need it mainly because of the central idea is still the same. So that's what I really appreciate about the CNET article. But as it stated, Sony fined $2.4 million over PlayStation refund refusals. This was posted 4 days ago by Sean Keenan. Sony was hit with a $2.5 million lawsuit, or in Australia because it was in Australia, so AU 3.5 million fine for denying customers refunds for faulty PlayStation games, a consumer watchdog said Friday. It made false, and this is in quotation marks, so it's quoting, It made false and misleading representations about people's consumer law rights, the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission, the ACCC, noted. The commission filed the lawsuit against Sony Interactive Entertainment Network Europe, which runs the company's Australian operations. In May 2019, after the company told 4 customers it did not have to offer refunds for faulty games after they had been downloaded and had been more than 14 days since the purchase. Quotation again. Consumer guarantee rights do not expire after a digital product has been downloaded and certainly do not disappear after 14 days or any arbitrary date claimed by a game store or developer, the ACCC chairperson Rod Sims said in a release. The court also declared Sony Europe breached Australia's consumer law by telling one of the 4 customers it did not have to provide a refund unless the game developer authorized it, and by telling a 5th consumer that Sony Europe could provide a refund using virtual PlayStation currency instead of money. We'll talk about that. What Sony, this is also quotation marks, what Sony told these consumers was false and does not reflect the consumer guaranteed rights afforded to the Australian consumers under the Australian consumer law, Sims said. Sony did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Obviously, this is, really shitty for Sony because, man, like we've known about this for a while. Anybody that's been up to scuff with the industry knows that Sony doesn't have the best refund policy. Is it better than Nintendo's? Yes, because Nintendo's like, you bought something digitally? Haha, no refund for you, sucker. Yeah, that's Nintendo's policy. And Sony's, while it is better, up to 14 days, but you can't touch the game at all. So if you bought it by mistake, then yes, you can get a refund. But if you played it for a bit and you just didn't like it, you're SOL. You're SOL. Microsoft's approach in this case is much more similar to Steam's, but it is restricted, mainly because it's only 1 per year. But it is similar to Steam's, where you get up to 14 days and you can play it for up to 2 hours. As long as you play it less than 2 hours, you can get your refund. Full money back, no issues. No questions asked. But you're only allowed to do it once per year. So that's a bit shitty. It is pretty shitty. We're not gonna lie to you guys, it is pretty shitty. Steam's is obviously way more liberal, where it's like, look, you can play this up to 2 hours and you get 14 days to return it. You can do it as many times as you want per year. No issue, no questions, just here's your money, move on. This is something that a lot of people get annoyed because Sony, while I do agree it is a nice idea that they do this, where they give you 14 days. I think that's a good idea. It's still better than Nintendo because, like I said, Nintendo doesn't give you a refund. Like, you buy something digitally, you're SOL, even though it doesn't make much logical sense because it's just a digital game. You get what I'm saying? That doesn't make much sense how you can deny somebody because they didn't touch it, and you could just sell it again. It's just a digital game. That's all it is. It doesn't really change much. But as the industry goes forward, yes, it makes sense that buying games digitally is how people will do it going forward. It just makes sense. Like, it makes up the bigger chunk of the market. Granted, in the day, it didn't make much sense that people did it. It really didn't. And it was really hard, that, yes, I get it. Some people say we wish we could have the same refund policy we had when it came to hard copies. Because with hard copies, you could just go to a store. It's like, hey, I didn't like the game. Here you go. Take it back. And then they just sell it again. That it was just straightforward, easy. Granted, most stores were a little bit more hardball about that. They didn't want to, if you opened it, you're like, sorry, can't take that back. But with digital games is a little bit more different. But I think what makes this very interesting is how Sony is very stiff about this. Like, they've already been taken to court about this. It's the second time they've been taken to court about this. Granted, that doesn't mean it hasn't happened more often. That just means that it hasn't been, talked about. That doesn't mean that it just hasn't been talked about. And the notable times, as we mentioned, it happened in Australia because of Australia's trade acts that are going on. And I personally think it's kind of funny. I find it pretty funny, to be honest. If I'm being real with you, it's pretty funny. Especially because, yes, anybody that knows me, yes, I like Xbox. But I do agree that Microsoft, in terms of these kind of situations, seems to play a little bit more fair. That's me being more objective in this sense, because that is true. If we've noticed a track record, Sony hasn't been really so consumer friendly in these areas. They haven't really been so lenient. They've been very stiff. They've been very stubborn. They've been stuck in our way or the highway. Granted, not as bad as Nintendo, but that doesn't, you get what I mean, is that doesn't really mean much when your main competitors in terms of PC market and console market have a better return policy than you. And also in terms of other areas that relate to consumers and, digital services, they just outpace you. And that's just something that this doesn't just affect Sony in terms of the refund policy. This also is a very noticeable trend that Sony has been doing in other fields. And it's kind of depressing, Like, yes, I get it. Sony has been killing it with the games. They've just been doing amazing. Like, their first party games have been phenomenal. Yes, the consoles when they came out, yes, the PS4 was better than the Xbox One. It was hands down better in terms of power and in terms of games. The catalog was better. Like, granted, you also have to keep in mind Xbox was going through a management shift near the beginning of the console, mainly because if you think about it, at the start of the generation, they didn't know what they wanted this thing. They wanted this thing to be a multimedia box. Like, they wanted to force the Kinect, and that was just a horrible idea. The president of Microsoft at the time, or Xbox brand in general, was, I'd say, clueless. To, like, not to be mean or just to like offend that person, but I'm just saying, like, yes, it was very clueless. There was no direction. And then when Phil Spencer took over, then there was clear direction, and there was a good 180 in a healthy direction, like healthy 180 that needed to be, like, it needed to happen. And it became focused. The Xbox brand became focused. They began to start pushing. And yes, while it did not beat the PS4, we're not, like, I'm being honest, as much as I love the Xbox One, it didn't beat the PS4, like, it just didn't. Like, it didn't beat the PS4. And that's okay. Microsoft understood, look, we're not going to be able to beat this console. We're not. They are not going to outsell the PS4, especially because if you think about it in terms of sales, the PS4 sells way better in Japan than Xbox does, because it's part of the Japanese culture that you support local businesses, or I'd say, well, it's not really a local business, but you support the homegrown stuff over foreign products. That's just normal, And the only exception is Apple. But you get what I'm saying is that, yes, Microsoft understood that they couldn't beat the PS4. Granted, in terms of power, they did with the Xbox One X. It just stomped all over the PS4 Pro. It did. And granted, the main complaint everyone had was there just wasn't any games to really utilize it. Granted, third parties, absolutely. If you're going to play a third party game, you'd rather just buy the Xbox One X. It was better than PS4 Pro, and it's going to play the third parties much better. It just, objective fact, it did. It ran them better. And the first party games, yeah, there just wasn't that many. And that's fine. Microsoft learned from its mistakes, bought more studios, and now at the launch of the next generation, they're gonna have a ton of games. Microsoft has only been showing exclusive after exclusive after exclusive. Granted, have we seen actual gameplay of them? No, we haven't, but we know they're there. We know they're being worked on. Sony, besides The Last of Us 2, we haven't really seen much. And Godfall, but even then, like, it's a new IP, so it'll be interesting. Like, it could flop. It could do, like, the same thing could be said about Microsoft. It could flop, all the new IPs they're making. But you get what I'm saying is this is just another, what's it called? A piece of the puzzle, It's just another stone to throw at Sony, because it's just showing how overconfident they seem going into this generation. That they just don't seem to really care about the consumer and how the consumer feels, People have been asking for months and months, like when Microsoft just came out and was like, here's the new Xbox. This is what it looks like. This is how it is running, And Sony, based on the rumors, the prototypes are not even ready. They're not even done. Like, they're still not even done in manufacturing these things. Like, I'd say even producing them to begin. Like, because, you know, the manufacturing process is like, you know, on the belt, final production, while the producing is actually, you know, the start of the like finalizing the prototypes, having them done, and then deciding this is what we go with, boom, and then push them into manufacturing and go. The fact is that the rumors going around is that the PlayStation 5 isn't even ready, which is concerning, that it's not, they still don't have a final design. And that's very concerning, you know, especially because Microsoft, they're already shown that, yes, they're ready to go. The console will, in theory, ship by this year. It will ship. And granted, depending on Halo Infinite launching with it, that's a different story. But Microsoft is very keen that the console is ready to go, that it will be ready and shipped holiday 2020. Halo Infinite, we'll see, because, you know, they want to launch Halo with the next Xbox, which that's why we have the July event where Microsoft is going to be showing all the first party games that they've been working on. You know, we're probably going to see some new ones that we didn't know. Pray we get a Fable remake. Everyone really wants Fable, like Fable 4. People really want Fable, but I'm more interested in Halo. That's what I care about more, because I actually, this is just a side note before we go, like, keep going into it. Like, I actually beat all the Halo campaigns. I beat Halo 1, Halo CE, Halo 2, and Halo Reach on Legendary on PC, because the Master Chief Collection is on PC. So me and my friend Gilberto, we were actually going through it, and man, Halo 2 sucks so much on Legendary. But we'll talk about that another time, because when we talk about Halo Infinite, we're going to be talking about that stuff, because like I said, Halo Infinite is what has me the most excited for the next generation. But you got what I'm saying, is that how this all wraps into, like, Sony just doesn't seem to be so focused on the consumer this time around. They don't. They just seem very overconfident. They seem, well, we won the last generation, so who cares? You know, like, who cares if we don't have the best refund policy? Like, at least it's not as shitty as Nintendo's, you know, as long as we don't have it as bad as that. Hey, people can't get on our grill. Hey, like, we don't really have that much backwards compatibility, but who cares? You know, it's not like our competition has a much better approach to backwards compatibility than us, you know. And if you notice, it's just these little things that many people seem to ignore, and it's what makes up the core gaming experience on a console. It's not just the first party games. We have to realize, like, yes, console gaming is not just about the first parties. Sony's even getting rid of the first parties. Like, well, granted, they're still going to be on PlayStation, but they're also going to be on PC. So they're not even going to, so like, the same crap people are giving Microsoft about pushing the first party games onto PC, Sony's doing the same thing. So if you're not giving them the same amount of crap, like, you're just a hypocrite. You're straight up hypocrite. And, you know, like, I can't take your input seriously, because you're having double standards. Like, you're not holding everybody to the same standard, because if one company is doing this and the other one does the exact same thing, but you're giving one shit over the other, you're nothing but a hypocrite. And consumers need to realize, look, you should not tolerate these kind of policies. Like, this is pure bullshit. This is the second time this has happened. Like, granted, yes, I'm not saying Microsoft is clean too. No, they're not clean either. Like, they got some record, like, they got some shitty history too. But at least they're making steps forward for the consumer. Like, it's not as, in my opinion, I want to use the term tone deaf. That Sony just seems very tone deaf going into this next generation. That they're not making the wisest of moves. That they're not thinking about how the consumer is going to react to this. They're just doing it just to do it. They don't really care. Like, the future of gaming, you know, okay, cool. Like, I criticize the PlayStation 4 controller because, in my opinion, it just looks like a bootleg Xbox controller. But that's my opinion. I've stated that's my opinion. That's not objective fact. I made it clear that that's my opinion. If we wanted to talk about objectivity, we have to test both controllers in the hand, you know? But you get what I'm saying, though. Sony is objectively making a lot of bad calls in terms of approaching their consumer base and how you get what I'm saying, is like, they're not, you know, they're not taking care of you, you know? Like, I get it. Yes, we're paying them money. But it's like, think of this example. And this is an example a lot of people have used. When it comes to the refund policy, because this is what the episode is mainly about, the refund policy, but it goes so much bigger than the refund policy. But if we want to specifically focus on the refund policy, say you have a kid. They bought a game accidentally. They didn't play it. They just bought it accidentally because, you know, they were messing around with your PlayStation and they bought it. and you didn't know until like, say, 15 days in, like a day after the 14 days is up. Like, you didn't touch the game. You didn't touch it. It was accidentally bought. You didn't find out until like 15 days after. So what do? You call Sony and they're like, hey, sorry about that, but you can't get your money back. And you can't say it didn't happen because Sony is doing this in Australia. And who knows? Who knows the amount of people that have this same issue in, the United States, Nobody reports about it. Like, people acknowledge Sony's customer service is kind of a pain in the ass to deal with. Microsoft at least has customer service, but that's also because, it's, the Xbox brand is associated with Microsoft, and Microsoft is obviously a big company, so they invest a lot in customer service. So you got what I'm saying? It makes sense. But Sony's not a small company either. Sony's a big company. They're one of the biggest camera manufacturers on the planet. They have another big TV brand as well. They have movie productions, like, they're a pretty big company, they're not some tiny, small company, like, they're pretty big, bro. They're pretty big. But you got what I'm saying is they're making a lot of these anti-consumer practice, like, they're basically forcing all these anti-consumer practices on you guys, and you guys are just eating this up, like, and I think it's time that as consumers, we start to vote with our wallets, we start talking with our wallets. It's like, hey, we are not going to support these practices because these are not healthy. This is not what a stable market or healthy market does. Steam is fair game. Steam competes with a lot of places to sell you games on PC. They also have the most lenient return policy out of anyone. Like, they just do. And that's why people like the Steam return policy, because it's fair, it's balanced. Is Steam perfect? No. Is it annoying to deal with? Yes. But at least they have a lenient return policy, and yes, like, most people genuinely trust Steam. Like, but you got what I'm saying is, like, why are you tolerating these anti-consumer practices? And yes, they're getting taken to court for this, as they should. Any company should be taken to court for anti-consumer practices. Anything that hurts the consumer, a company should be held responsible for it. Like, we're not going to just sit here and pretend like this is okay, like, that's not cool, And that's why I'm sharing my opinion on this, because I had time to think about this, because this is something that's been on my mind for a while now, is how as consumers we're supporting this, with we're still letting these companies get away with this crap, when in reality they shouldn't. We're the ones giving them money. It's our money. They can't survive without our money. If we're not giving them money, they will not survive. So stop funding this bullshit, like, I'm sorry for my language being a little bit more fierce today, but I'm just being honest with you. I'm being objective. Why are you supporting practices that hurts you? That's like saying you're like, you got abused and then you keep going back to your abuser, like you get how that dynamic you look stupid, like, you look stupid. Granted, I know there's a lot more into it, which, trust me, I've been on the other end of that stick, like, I've been that fool taking that bait. But over time, I learned that, hey, maybe I shouldn't keep going back, like, stop going back to that well, like, it's like a old saying that goes, it's like, don't be the dog that goes back to its vomit, like, you shouldn't, but you keep going back to it. You need to stop doing that. And that's how we should really be with these companies, is hold them accountable. Like, vote with your wallets, like, don't just say, yeah, this is pretty crappy, but I'm still going to keep giving them money, like, you look like a hypocrite. So as consumers, we should get annoyed by this, like, this shouldn't be just like, oh, it's okay. No, you should be annoyed. You should be calling for reform, like, you should. This isn't fair. Like, this isn't right, like, that's just something that I want to give you guys food for thought, so that you guys would, keep this in consideration and keep this in your mind and your heart, or in your mind and your heart, but to be mindful of these things, like, vote with your wallets, be smart consumers. If you don't support a company's decisions, why are you supporting them financially? That's just, like I said, that's my opinion, but it's also being objective at the same time. That if you don't support this company's practices and, policies that they have, why do you keep supporting them? Just food for thought. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Obviously, if you're listening to this on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever the heck you're listening to this podcast in the audio realm, let me know what you guys think. Hit up my social medias and, at SoMungi, and you'll pretty much find me anywhere except Twitter, because that's a different one. But, let me know what you guys think. How do you guys feel about this? How do you take to heart this kind of information? How do you visualize a situation in your head? What do you think would be a smart idea or a good, a solution to this problem? What do you guys think would be a good solution? A wise man once told me, it's hey, I'm okay with you coming and complaining to me, but you better bring a solution. Because if you're not helping. If you're going to come complain, bring a solution, And in my case, yes, we're going to complain about this. But the solution, in my opinion, is we need to vote with our wallets and be smart, stop supporting these bad practices and call for reform, call for reform, take them to court, take the necessary actions to hold these companies responsible for these BS practices and policies. It's unacceptable. We're in 2020. The gaming market is so different than it was a long time ago. It's much more different. So you can't let these things slide when they don't slide in the market, other companies aren't doing this, So let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. If you're watching on YouTube or if you're listening in the audio realm, let me know what you guys think on my social medias. Hit me up, text me, DM me, do whatever you got to do to get my attention. But I love you guys to death. Please continue to be safe. I know we have another episode for you guys this week, and I'm really excited for it. And it's going to be fun because obviously we got a doubleheader for Sony. Maybe I might be a little bit more positive the next time around, But again, this isn't just me because, everyone knows that I like Xbox. This isn't just me being an Xbox fanboy. No, this is me being objective with you, giving you my honest opinion, and at the same time being as objective as I can be in this situation, because this discussion needs subjectivity. Or objectivity, not subjectivity. It needs objectivity. We need to be objective in the middle and tell it how it is, But I love you guys to death. Please continue to be safe. And I'll see you guys on Friday. Bye, guys. Hey there. Thank you for listening to today's episode. I really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for taking time out of your day and listening to today's episode. If you're interested in supporting the show, whether it be financially, clicking the follow button, or just sharing the episode, it all works for me, guys. Thank you guys so much for your time, and I love you guys to death.